Um, but did you shower for today's thing?
I shower.
Yeah.
I've been doing like my once a week, quarantine schedule.
Okay, so you showered Monday for this. So this is important.
Yeah,
I
it's
saw,
not every Thursday. I showered this morning. It's every Thursday. I showered today.
oh, okay. Whether you need it or not. Yeah, I saw one of those little like I voted stickers turned into I showered sticker. I thought that was pretty funny. So, and I've been messaging people. I called Will from Mar Machines yesterday. I'm like, hey man, started bug on a Saturday, and he was like, what? So that's it. That's a good one, man. So
You
anyway,
entered the time warp.
yeah. So why don't you tell people who you are, and then we'll talk about what we're gonna do today.
Cool. So my name is Jeremy Bernstein. I'm a staff engineer and do a lot of tape transfer archival work for Welcome to 1979. We're a recording studio in Nashville. Say we're analog centric, but not limited to analog recording. But we do a lot of recording to tape and working with tape.
Cool. And I'm Chris Mara. I own Welcome to 1979 and Mara Machines. It's a studio in Nashville that's been around for about 12 years, and we're having a lot of fun. So today we're going to do studio tech. The studio is quite large. It's about 7,000 square feet of studio space, and it's wired really interestingly, really cool. Jeremy assists outside engineers. He engineers his own sessions there. We work on projects together. So we're going to talk about the different ways we work on projects, different things we've seen. Jeremy's seen a lot more than I have because he assists other engineers. And this is a series we're doing called Q&A in Quarantine. And we've done a full studio tour when we had access to the building. We don't right now. We did one on mastering, which was awesome. We did one on direct-to-disc recording. We had Morgan Janning from Old Crow Medicine Show join us. I did one on producing, and I think we're going to do another one on that. It was pretty fun. And then next week, we're doing one on Mara Machines specifically, and electroplating, which is something we also do. It's part of the vinyl manufacturing process. And we're going to do one with you too, Jeremy, on transfers, right? Next week?
Yeah.
Or the week after?
Yeah.
And then, what's that? Yeah, what are we going to talk about then?
Talk about what steps we take to digitize your old analog tapes and preserve them for the future. Mm-hmm. Challenges with storing and how to store tape. The process of baking and digitizing, transferring your tapes to digital so that they can remain, because anything analog, anything physical that you can hold can degrade, will degrade over time.
Yeah, we get a lot of questions about that, so we're taking this downtime to just do these Facebook Live Q&As on all the different things we do and let people just chime in and really dig deep. And then I think I'm going to do another one on producing with another producer and the artist. It's fun to have the artist on and get the artist perspective. If you want to check the ones out we've done, they're still on our Facebook page. Just go to videos and watch them, and you can see the questions we're answering. And if you have any other questions that weren't answered or asked, just shoot us an email or Facebook message. Let's get started today on Studio Tech. So again, any questions anyone has at any time, just jump in, because we don't want to just be two people talking without a purpose. So, Jeremy, the name, and I apologize to you for this, but the name Welcome to 1979 is fun, but it does inadvertently invoke a lot of myths or misconceptions about the studio itself. And you have to deal with that a lot on the front end with artists and engineers. Can you talk about the ones that you have to manage the most?
Sure. Yeah, so with a name like Welcome to 1979, and since we have the Mara Machine business and have a lot of our business centered around tape, people a lot of times will ask, can we record digital, or can I leave with my files for Pro Tools? And the answer is absolutely yes. Yes, we are set up, we're just as equipped to do digital Pro Tools sessions as we are to do tape sessions. And all of our sessions that I've been on past year and a half have incorporated both analog and digital recording. Usually it's pretty common for us at the end of a day or midday during lunch break or something to dump our tape into Pro Tools and that's just a direct transfer. There's no processing in that. Just tape machine straight into our converters. We have these awesome Lynx Aurora converters and sound great. And, yeah, so I mean, it's a matter of 5-minute switch for us to switch from an analog setup to a Pro Tools digital recording setup. It's just a matter of flipping a few Elco connectors around the back of the tape machine. We're ready to rock.
Man, we've already got like questions coming in. So Danny, quick segue. So Danny wants to know if we can transfer his 1-inch 16-track masters. So you want to take that one, Jeremy?
Sure. 1-inch 16. That is not a format that we typically do offer for transfers.
Right. So it's one of the few we don't have. But Danny, send us an email or a Facebook message. It's one of the 1 or 2 formats we don't have, and we know who does have it, so we'll loop you in with him. So we'll take care of you no matter what. Well, Andy Reid just popped in. That's it. Hey, Andy.
Hello, Andy.
Andy and Jeremy have worked on sessions before. Andy's an awesome engineer. Anyway, and so, yeah, and another misconception, too, that I have to deal with a lot is with a name like Welcome to 1979, people want to know if we not only operate with modern equipment, or they just don't want to sound too old school, you know? And I mean, do you bump into that at all, Jeremy, when people like are concerned about sounding too old?
Sure. I mean, I think people are concerned about it, but I think they realize pretty quickly that we're making modern sounding records. I mean, we can do it all. Depends on the project, depends on what the artist and the producer want, but we can get a vintage sound at the studio. We can also get a super modern contemporary radio, whatever sound that you want. Just really depends on what's right for the music, right for the song.
Yep, that's a good point. And I guess this is all framed in that's not, the name isn't us pushing like our fundamentals on people, right?
Absolutely.
Yeah.
We work around the musician and the artist and the band producer. We're not the ones calling the shots in that turn. We work with them to give them what they want for the music. That's our job.
Yeah, and Jeremy and I work very hard to make sure the studio can handle wherever the session might go. And we'll get into kind of that, how it's all laid out. And I mean, we could, maybe a little later or now, we could play a couple sound clips, because I have a couple ready that are super modern and one that's like super broken down, you know. But we'll do that a little bit later because we're just starting to dig in. Talk about, you kind of touched on it, talk about like your typical session flow from when an artist or engineer emails you about, you know, the setup and what they're going to walk into, and then, you know, when they walk into the studio in the morning of their session, what are they going to see, and then how do you get to that point, and then how does the day work?
Sure. So typically a week or a few weeks before the session, I'll reach out to the producer, the engineer, artist, whoever is the right person to reach out to, and I'll send them our mic list, our input list, ask them kind of what the vibe is, what the type of music is, what they're going for. And once I get that information to them, they can, a lot of times will ask me questions back about, well, like, we want to get a big rock drum sound. Where should we put the drums? Stuff like that. But there's a little bit of talking that happens beforehand, kind of premeditated, and you can send them a floor plan. They can kind of check the space out, get an idea if they haven't worked here before. And they'll usually get back to me. They'll almost always, before the session, get me an input list with mics and processing, what compressors, EQs they want, how they want stuff set up. And the night before, I'll hang out at the studio and tie everything in, line check everything. And that way, when the band comes in, the artist, engineer, everyone comes in the following morning, everything is ready to go, ready to rock. It's just a matter of, okay, let's set up the kit, let's set up the drum kit, let's get your amp set up, let's get everyone comfortable, ready to make music, caffeinated. And typically we're ready to rock. I mean, it's just a matter of engineer placing the mics, and maybe they say, oh, let's switch this out for that. Let's change this, or we're going to add another guitar amp. The guitar player wants to play in stereo. Stuff like that always gets added last minute. That's no problem. But yeah, it's very much our goal that you walk in the next day and it's a matter of you setting up your instruments and we're ready to get sounds and start the day.
Nice. Well, you mentioned sending a floor plan and talking about where they want things. So the drums just don't go in one spot and the singer goes in one spot. I mean, talk about the spaces of the studio.
Totally.
Why do we need a floor plan on the website?
One of my favorite things about Welcome to 1979 is how flexible of a recording space it is. Pretty much the entire building, if you haven't been, it's a pretty gigantic building. We're pretty much ready to rock recording in, I'd say 90% of the building at any given time. And we can get stuff set up in a matter of minutes. It's not like, oh yeah, we can record there an hour later, we're still setting up. No, there's tie lines pretty much everywhere. We've got long snake cables that we use for certain rooms. So I really like that it's not locked into this is where the drums go. And the drums are always here for every session. I mean, I guess there's something wrong with that, but I really have always enjoyed that we can, if we want a different drum sound, we'll put them up in the hallway upstairs. We've got this long reverberant hallway and you can get a pretty cool kind of 60s, late 60s drum sound up in there. Or if you want a more 70s, 80s slamming rock drum sound, we'll put it back down in the live room. We got space for that. Or a really tight, like Fleetwood Mac type drum sound, we've got the dead room. So it's flexible. And that's why I like to ask the producer and engineer and whoever I'm working with what their vision is for their music, what they're going for. Because that way, I mean, since I do assist a bunch of outside engineers and I assist you, I know the space pretty well. Sometimes I can help suggest for what they're going for, what might be the right place if they're not familiar with the studio.
Right. Right. And the question I get a lot, because there are 3 places we can do drums. Well, I mean, 4 places, if not more. But the 3 main ones that are wired for drums, they don't look like you would think a big drum room sound, but they sound amazing. Like, well, are you sure? And I'm gonna pop this up in here real quick. So like, Native Instruments came several years ago and did a drum library sample, and it's one of their best-selling ones. So you can just check it out on their website, and it's amazing to have a company like that literally go to Abbey Road for a week and then pack up and fly to Nashville and choose Welcome to 1979. And they had a blast, and it's one of the best-selling drum libraries. So I don't, it's always like, well, how's it sound? Well, I mean, when a company pays to sample your rooms and then they sell it, then that's a pretty good sounding room, Yeah. Here's a question. Milton wants to know, do you think echo and reverb is overused these days in modern recording?
What do you think, Chris?
It's interesting when I think of older recordings, like, because I just answer questions like just as it pops in my mind. I think echo was overused in the earlier ones, 50s and 60s, and because they were experimenting with it. There wasn't that boundary, and of course the 80s, the gated reverb thing. These days I hear a lot of tasteful uses of reverb, I mean, there's always outliers. What do you think, Jeremy?
Personally, I love the ethereal and otherworldly stuff. I mean, when I'm trying to think of what artists they might be talking about. Someone like Tame Impala kind of comes to mind for someone who uses a lot of reverb and delay in a modern setting. I love it. And I think that's one of the great things about going into the studio is we can create unnatural and otherworldly sounds, and it's okay. You can't do that as easily on a stage. Right. You can.
Right.
It's not a problem for me. I like it.
Yeah, I think of like some old Muddy Waters records, and then like I think they're getting more tasteful now. It's not just a lot of a chamber that has a certain sound and a lot of whatever. They can layer a lot of plugins and such and get more of a dreamscape going. I'm reading through some comments right now. Oh, Andy reads so sweet. He says that Jeremy makes it extremely easy for an outside engineer to work there. You can lean on him for anything in need. He's really ready and willing. And he says he's never worked at a more accommodating studio. That's awesome. So
thanks, Andy. I'll send you that Venmo. I'll send you that Venmo for that comment.
Yeah, there you go. Well, and Andy makes a good point. He says it opens up the space, basically. It opens up the freedom to be creative, which is what we want. I mean, there's a lot of technical stuff around the studio, and we work really hard to kind of put it in the background, so you don't have to think through technology to get creative. It's just there. Peter wants to know, what is the most odd setup that a client has requested?
Peter, come up with top questions.
Go for it.
I need a second, Chris. You got one off the top of your head?
Well, I mean, yeah, it was because I was a client. I mean, this blows it out of the water. But I decided for a party to record 10 bands live to vinyl in a row. So I would have turned anybody down who decided to do that. But we had 10 bands set up all over the studio. But that totally non-conventional, and that's actually cheating to answer that question. But
so we've used we have a slide at Welcome to 1979. If you haven't been there, if you've been there, you know about the slide. But like a literal, like, I don't want to say children's slide because adults use it, but a slide from the upstairs to downstairs. And Chris, a few times you've used it kind of almost as a reverby chamber type thing, or reamping. We'll put an amp up at the top of the slide and throw a 57 or a 58 at the bottom and get kind of a spatial thing happening with it. That's pretty unusual. Another one that comes to mind is I once had a client who wanted a drum room sound, but they wanted me to mic up the tubes at the bottom of a it's not a marimba, but not a xylophone, but you know what I'm talking about, one of those mallet instruments with the long tubes, and they've got little rotors on it that spin, and they had me mic the bottom of the tube and put that on the other end of the drum kit and record that as a big mono reverb thing. And it almost sounded like a Leslie or something because of those rotors that are moving in it.
Yeah.
That was unusual.
Yeah. And we talk about this too. The clients we have really come to the space ready to just dig in. Vibraphone, that's what that is.
Thank you.
Thank you, Dave. Thank you. And I forget the artist's name. He came, showed up, was doing this kind of acoustic-y record with a drummer, and the Nashville Electric Company decided to dig a new telephone pole, electric pole outside the studio one day, just unannounced. They show up with this big, huge, it's like the biggest hole saw you've ever seen, right? 30 feet off the front door. So you can just hear it. And I went out there as an owner to just like, how can we manage this? Can you guys come back tomorrow? And the artist walks out and he goes, well, man, can you do it a little slower? And we'll just record it. And then that'll be my loop. And the guy with the hard hat and his big belly is bouncing around and he just slows it down. And I got a 414. And so it's just like, instead of the artist client kind of like getting upset at a situation, just totally turned it into part of his record. So that's fun for a lot of reasons. So, well, you touched, Jeremy, on reamping with the slide, because we do that a lot, and I think one of the reasons we can move as fast as we move to our setups is not just the 100 tie lines around we can plug microphones in, but the headphone system as well, right? Yeah. And then the headphone system is one of those what is it? The Behringer 16
Power
play. Yeah, and it's all Ethernet. And you and I discovered one day that it has line outputs, and you can solo stuff. So we could send a vocal a vocal is always being centered anyway. You can just solo the vocal out to a guitar amp, you know what I mean, and use it as an instant reamp box. And we have 11 of those just are all over the studio.
Yeah.
So that's what's been fun about that.
And I love that we can do it in real time. We don't have to, we can do it as we're tracking it. So we can get a Leslie vocal effect live. It's not a matter of sing it, then we'll reamp it through the Leslie. We can do it all at once, which is great. Convenient, especially if we are working on tape. It's nice. Bam, it's there. And they can hear the sound that they're recording, because you're going to put a vocal through a Leslie or something drastic like that, something heavily effective. That's going to change how they sing. You want them singing into the effect, ideally. I personally, I would want them singing into the effect. I trust the artist first and foremost, more than a mix like us on the mix trying to make something happen after. I'd rather just get it there, let the artist sing into that.
Yeah, they're gonna lean into it, and it may change the tempo of the song if we're tracking live. You know, that's fun. So that's where technology helps a creative thing instead of vice versa. Well, I mean, since this is a tech one, let's dig into kind of, in my mind, I see the website with the gear list. So let's just talk about the console and recorders and outboards. So talk about this console.
Sure. So we have a 28 input, 28 input MCI console, and it's been modded quite heavily. Added phase switches, things that you would want for recording. One of my favorite mod that we have is switchable preamps. So you can switch from the stock MCI preamp, which sounds great on its own, but with a little flip of a switch, you can switch to a vintage API style preamp. I think it's done by Cappy, and they sound awesome. And it's great because you can just A/B your preamps, and you've got two flavors of American style preamps at the flip of a switch, and it's cool. You can change it by song. It's super easy to just go back and forth, and the pad goes to both of those preamps, so it's super flexible.
Mm-hmm. Cool. And then what else? We've got the Trident sidecar too, right? I don't have a photo of that, but
we got 10 channels of Trident 80B modules, which that's my new favorite thing. I've been using those on all my sessions, been maxing out the Trident because I love the sound of those EQs. Yeah, so 10 channels of that with its own internal busing, so you can still sum tracks, but it's all tied into the patch bay, so everything's really easy it's all integrated really well with each other. And for outboard, we've got 4 channels with 1073 style preamps, 2 Vintex, 2 Heritage. Those sound great. 1073, it's not to love. We got the Undertone Unfairchild, which is always used on every session because it sounds so damn good. Trying to think what else. We got a bunch of DBX 160s, the 160 VUs. Those are always used on session. You can use those on anything. And your staples, 1176s. We've got a vintage blue stripe pair of the Red A 1176s, LA2A.
So a good bit of gear. And then, just to break, dare I say tradition, if something sounds good and I can afford it, we're going to buy it. And these Warm EQs, I bought right when they came out and freaking love them. And I get so much shit for having those. I think it's hilarious. I really do.
Yeah, we're not about that dogma, fetishizing of gear and stuff. If it sounds good and we can use it, then we're going to use it.
Yeah. I mean, we'll pull down a 47 and put up a SM58 if it's better, for the thing. So, yeah. And you talked about, I'm just looking through my pictures I've got available. You talked about Pro Tools and tape in the same session. And this is our rather large control room, and the sessions tend to flow from tracking up into the control room for overdub. So this is kind of fun. We've got, I don't remember what session this is, but we've got someone playing Whirly like right in the control room as we're working on other things. And I guarantee you there's a Rhodes to her left and a piano we were using, so the artist can just walk around with the session player and just figure out what instrument is right, you know, which it really makes things move faster, you know. And I think that's a good thing to talk about too. Oh, what were you gonna say?
It's not uncommon for us sometimes, depending on how the song is going to be tracked, can also dictate if we're going to go straight to tape or if we're going to go to Pro Tools. Like we just did a session for an Australian artist, Jack Nolan, who's awesome. And there were most of the songs were cut to 2-inch tape, live, full band tracking. But then there were a few songs that they wanted to kind of build up. And on a few of the songs, we ended up just cutting straight to Pro Tools. I think it was the last day of tracking, just because it fit the production style and the fact that we were building it up as a track like that, as opposed to just getting a live take in a band. So switching is really simple for us. I can switch from tape to Pro Tools in 10 minutes, including transferring from tape to digital, and I can go from digital to tape in 2 minutes.
Right. Yeah, I mean, it's we just try to make sure the time isn't spent on that stuff, so we can still be creative, you know, and just walk through it, you know. I'm reading a longer question from Rob, and yeah, I definitely an email would be great for us to answer this to you. We did a whole Facebook Live on mastering for vinyl. Rob wants to talk about sending us digital files for mastering. Yes, we cut lacquers here. He wants us to recommend a pressing plant, which we do. We work with several. We'll ask you a couple questions on that and recommend a plant and just loop you in right with the owner. And just the questions we asked are like, we'll ask you are how many records you want to get pressed and where are you in the country, because that sometimes helps. But yeah, we cut a lot of lacquers a day, and we ship a lot of metal parts every month. So we know what plants are doing good work on a weekly basis, and we can take care of you. So definitely send us an email or a PM. If you email me at Chris, CHRIS, at welcome1979.com, Brad, I'll get you rolling on that. So this is a good time. He's talking about doing it in the fall, and this is a good time to start preparing for that. So looking through, we really haven't talked much about our mic collection, Jeremy. We talked about different types of recordings we do. You know, the old school, the new school. People come to us for our spaces and our microphones, I think.
Yeah.
Aside from our bright personalities. Yeah, what we got in the mic locker?
So we got a little bit of everything that you would need. We got tube mics, like we've got a pair of the Flea M49s, which sound amazing. They're probably my favorite mics we have. So we've got a pair of those. We've got the Mic Shop MS47, which is a badass U47 clone. Then we've also got a vintage AKG C12A, which is phenomenal on pretty much anything I've put it up on. Yeah, and then we've also got some more modern style tube mics, some of the Mic Tech C4s, which are really cool and can be used pretty much anywhere. So that's our tube mic collection. But then we've got a bunch of large diaphragm condensers, small diaphragm condensers, ribbon mics, everything. From ribbons, we've got a pair of vintage RCA 44s, which sound awesome. We've got a pair of 74s, which we just got re-ribboned, which is something I really appreciate about our studio. That if we start to hear something isn't quite working right, we address it and take care of it right away. So one of the ribbons had sagged on the 74, and we were like, let's just send them both out, get them both re-ribboned, retensioned, and they sound as close as a vintage pair of RCA mics is going to sound for a matched pair. As far as large diaphragm condensers, we've got some vintage U87s, And I believe one of those is modified. Is that correct, Chris?
Yep. Yep, from Bill Bradley. Yep.
Bill Bradley. Nice. And we've got these KM84, a pair of KM84s that get used on every session. We've got these SE-RN17s, which have a fat transformer, so a small diaphragm condenser with kind of comically large transformer at the end of it that was designed by Rupert Neve, and that's become one of my favorite microphones that we have. Don't forget the High Life can, Peter says. Yeah, we've got this awesome, I don't know if it's a crystal element mic or what it is, but it's a hollowed out High Life, Miller High Life can, and it's high impedance, so we usually go 1/4 inch out into an amp with that, but you can go into a DI also. But and then we just got the staples, 57s, SM7, 421s, 414s, pair of 414 ULSs. You got your cover.
Did you mention the Flea 49s?
Yep. Yeah.
Cool. Yeah, and the odd mics that Peter mentioned, we've got a ton of those. I spend a lot of time on like eBay at 3 in the morning, and I'll buy crazy stuff just to have it. Because when someone says, I kind of want it to sound like a telephone, and I walk to the mic locker and grab a telephone handset that is wired to a 1/4 inch, then you have that sound. Or a few weeks ago or a month ago, we were recording, and they referenced some old sounds. I'm like, oh yeah, that's like an RE5 on the overhead, just a dynamic Omni, and put that up. And it's not always the big mics that get the job done. Sophie wants to know. Let me see if we can fit this all on here. No, we can't. Sophie wants to know, what are your favorite flows and go-to combos of mics and preamps for female vocalists? Oh, this is awesome. Do you guys run through compressors while tracking vocals, or is that genre specific? It's a great question, Sophie. I was taught by a lot of Muscle Shoals engineers, and it's like, get the sound on the way to tape or Pro Tools. Just get the sound. And one of my go-tos for female vocals will either be a 47 or a C12A. The C12A I bought specifically for female vocals. I do a lot of that. And then recently I bought those 49s, which are also great for female vocals. And then I do, I've always got a plan A or plan B, and I start with like a couple compressors in line. So one's doing one thing and one's doing the other. And that lets me get a really good vocal sound that the singer has fun singing into or with. And so, yeah, so I personally, I do all the processing I can on the way to the format, so mixing, if I'm mixing a 30 or 40 track song, I may only have 10 plugins on it, but yeah, so technically it's like a 737 and a 160 is kind of my jam. And then I like my console mic pre's. I lean on those a lot. If not, I'm using the Vintech X3. Yeah. So yeah, Caleb he says one of his favorite tape camps. We do these tape camps twice a year. People come in and learn how to record and talk about how they record, and everyone learns. He says one of his favorite moments was the U47 being beat on a vocal shootout. Trying to learn not to choose with your eyes is hard. Got that right. I combat that once in a while when the singer wants a big, shiny microphone and it's not quite right for them. So sometimes I'll just sneak another mic next to it and keep the big, shiny one up there. So.
I mean, on the last record that we cut, we were switching. We had two vocal chains set up, and it was one of them was a 44, to big, expensive, shiny mic, and the other one was a 58. So yeah. We just picked based on the song, and sometimes the 58 was the right vibe for the song. So
yeah,
not always
yeah, and take a picture with the big shiny one for the album cover, and you're done. So we talked a minute ago about the misnomer that it's only an old school sounding studio. So let's we've talked a lot. I like to play some music too. Let's play a couple, maybe not full songs, but let's play a little bit of what I would consider a more modern sound, and then this super old school thing we did. The first one we play is a song by Brendan Benson. He did a lot of different songs and produced a lot of different records at the studio. This one's off his record, um, and the record's called "What Kind of World," and I forgot what song I have queued up, but let's listen.
Got a hole in my heart, pretty baby. Got a hole in my heart, can't you see? Should have known, pretty baby, that you were gonna be the end of me. I hear the sirens coming for you, baby. Hear the sirens blaring in the street. So why now, baby, tell me, why would a lady bring the heat? Ringing out, pretty baby. I hear the gunshots ringing in the night. What a sound, oh baby, hit the ground, pretty baby, out of sight.
Yeah, I'm getting pretty good at fading these live to Facebook. So Brendan, such a cool producer and engineer in his own right, and he was real keen on having different drum setups in the studio and just trying them out on different songs as we were tracking. And he was a big part of challenging the studio early on to grow into what it is now. Because and Jeremy and I do it too. We just did a pretty intensive tracking thing last month, and afterwards we sat down and said, "Okay, what can we wire in and make the next one that is crazy like this be easier?" You know.
Yeah.
And I think we ended up drilling a couple holes and running some cables. You know. So, and that's something too we always talk about is getting people back over and doing things like this, like, you know. If Brendan were to come back and do that same record again, it would be a lot easier because we, were challenged and then adapted and improved with, quite honestly, with the money made on the session or parts of it. So I Sophie says to use the big shiny mic as a room mic. That's a great point. Don't put it away. Yeah.
So Chris, the Brendan Benson sessions, you told me you had a session. I think it was one of the Brendan Benson sessions where I think it was 20 days and each day was a different setup, completely different setup. You would pull the mics and just start from scratch every day. Is that right?
Yeah. He was producing that. It was a Corey Chisel record. So he had different musicians coming in at different times. He had this record planned out extremely well. And we learned about the fourth day that it was easier just to unplug all the microphones, move them to the side, load it, new people in, and just figure out the plan, let them work, and then bring the microphones out and plug them in where we need to plug them in. So, and I counted up after we were done. I can't remember if we recorded 70 different instruments. Like different instruments, like not 15 different guitars, but guitars one. Not 70, probably 40, but it was a lot. I've recorded things I never recorded before. So bagpipes, it's Corey Chisholm, The Wandering Sons. Go check it out. I listened to that record recreationally. It's really good. Well, we played that. Now just the polar opposite. This band came in called Applewood Road, and I had Mike set up. We didn't really talk a lot before the session, and they said, we were kind of thinking, would it be all right to just sit around or stand around one microphone and do the whole record? And I was like, yeah, that would be really cool. I've been waiting to do a record like this. So we recorded one microphone in Omni, console mic 3, LA2A, 2 quarter-inch tape, and then a little bit of reverb, a little bit of plate reverb. And it's still probably on the Americana charts. It's called Applewood Road. Let me play a little bit of this for you. It's a fantastic record, and this song is mainly singing, bass, and guitars, but there are other songs on the record that have drums and everything, and we still did just one mic. Check it out.
Purple leaves all around, silver stars are falling down. I'm saving all these words I know and kicking up dust down Applewood Road, leaving my pennies on the track. Can't say if I'm coming back. Just flying through these fields so slow and taking my heart down Applewood Road. Tin roof, rattling rain, watch the moon taking the stage, spotlight for the nighttime show, making its way down Applewood Road, making our way down Applewood Road, making our way down Applewood Road.
Yeah, we got a lot of questions on that one, so let it roll. So what mic did we use? I used our U47 from the mic shop in Omni. And yeah, the vocals sound really good. And I took this, I learned a lot from this record. We did like 4 days of this. It was actually a lot more labor intensive than it sounds, which is good, right? The vocals, I think, are so tight, one, because they're awesome singers, but they could see each other and anticipate each other's moves, not just phrasing, but when they changed notes and such. So now a lot of times with even the bands I produce, I'll put 2 singers and one mic facing each other, so the backgrounds are tighter, Yeah, it's on one track in the song, but it's fine. That one was fun to mix, because we just had little pieces of wood with their name on it, and we would get the blend where we wanted it, record a little, they come and listen. Oh, little too much Emily, not enough, and we would just have them move their little markers, the little pieces of wood where they're standing next to, and mix it like that.
Self-mix.
Yeah. But check it out. It's on Spotify, and they did the album release listening party at the studio during Americana Fest when it came out. And had I not physically recorded the album, I would not believe it was all on one microphone. Some of that stuff had so much depth. One song has piano and drums, and it's unbelievable what one microphone can pick up and the depth you get from it. You know.
And not to derail the whole studio tech. I know this is a tech Q&A thing, but when I was listening to that, I couldn't help. It just was a good reminder that studio tech and great gear and stuff is all really fun and important. But at the end of the day, man, just get great singers, great players, and that's really what matters at the end of the day. I mean, you could have probably put up a 57 or an Omni dynamic mic in the middle of them. It still would have sounded really good because it's a hell of a song. It's a hell of a band. Great singers.
Yeah. But again, it's fun when artists come there with, it's a unique enough studio where they come ready to record a certain way, and then we end up learning from that. And now I've got those boards, on hand, and know when we do this, maybe not a whole record around one microphone, but backgrounds or gang vocals, we just drop those down and we know how to do it.
Right.
And coincidentally, this was recorded live to 1/4-inch tape, and then the tape was the songs were put in order on tape, and they were cut on vinyl from tape in England, and that's a pretty rare thing. So I just happened to be at a home hi-fi show in Hong Kong, and I walked by a rather large display, and somebody was playing this record to showcase their turntable and speakers. It was pretty cool. I think Jeremy had a bad connection, so where was I going to go? I had another thing I was going to show. Oh yeah, we had another question we'll answer real quick. William Tyson wants to know what our favorite MS setup is. So I've got a photo here ready for that. Jeremy's back.
Hey.
For those who don't know, I'm actually producing this too. I'm scrolling through photos. Here we go. So, Jeremy, what is your favorite? Oh, it's sideways. What's your favorite MS setup? I don't do mid-side. It's not my jam.
So I do a lot of Bloomline on my sessions with either the 74s or the 44s. It's usually the 74s because the 44s are kind of a pain to get set up for that. But for MS, I like 44 on the sides, and I don't know, RE15 set in mid, or maybe C12A in the mid. I don't know. That's kind of, I like something. I'll put something brighter for the mid typically, and then a 44. It's pretty easy to find something brighter than a 44, I guess. But yeah, 44 for the sides and a tube condenser for the mid, C12A.
Yeah, and what's nice about a lot of the tube condenser mics we have is they do figure 8, so you can switch them around. That's one of the reasons I bought the 49s, is then you could use a 49 for mid and one for side. I'm kind of saving up for U48, so you could do that, have that. And then I use figure 8 a lot for vocals, lead vocal and background vocal or duets and stuff. So yeah, there's a lot of options with mid-side. It's with the different types of mics you can use, like you said, you can use a ribbon for the sides and a large diaphragm condenser for the mid. It's pretty slick. I'm trying to think what else we haven't covered. Talk to us about a reverb there, Jeremy.
Sure.
We heard our plate reverb on the Applewood Road. That's all that was on that record, was the room that the people were in and a little bit of plate. So you heard that. What else do we have?
So we got this AKG BX20 spring reverb, which I adore. I put it on too many things, maybe. And what's really cool about that is that it's got a sound, man. It really has a lot of color, and you can overdrive it. Not kind of. You can overdrive the spring reverb, and it's long and lush and totally ethereal. So I like that on vocals or guitars, pretty much anything.
Yeah.
We also, that upstairs hallway I was talking about earlier, where we sometimes do drums, we set up a monitor up there, a speaker up there, pretty regularly, and we'll send vocals out through that speaker and treat it like a chamber. We also have a dedicated mono slapback MCI machine. It's just basically an Echo Boy, just an endless tape loop. And that's super fun. So we bring that back on the console from an aux and then get feedback by just sending the aux on itself.
Yeah. And something we're seeing more too is engineers that, everyone mixes in the box, but then they're kind of pushing to have their own flavor on it. So they'll book some time with you and come in and print these reverbs back into their sessions. Not so much for the outboard gear, which people do, but they'll take a vocal to tape. They'll use the tape delay. They'll use the spring reverb. These really unique reverbs that plugins, whether you think a plugin emulates a plate well or not, that's a separate topic. But they haven't emulated our plate. They haven't emulated our VX20. And anyone can tell you about vintage gear. They all sound different. You know what I mean? So to sit there, and we see that, don't we?
Absolutely. I mean, it's not uncommon for the last 2 hours of a session for it to be like, okay, I want spring on that guitar, and me to just print that. I'll go through and print a bunch of things. On this song, I want the vocals through the plate. On that song, I want the snare through the plate, and we'll just go through and print effects for a few hours. So it's not uncommon. What you said is really true, because they haven't emulated our plate or our spring, especially with vintage gear, whether it's a microphone, a spring reverb, whatever. You can grab 10 U47s, vintage U47s, and they all sound different. I mean, I love, I use it all the time, that UA AKG BX20 plugin. But our BX20 it's different. It just does a different thing, different color.
Yeah.
And I think that, sorry.
Oh no, I can pick ours out on a record. I mean, totally. So what were you gonna say?
I think that a large reason that someone earlier asked, do we usually commit our compression and EQ and stuff? And yeah, we do. I mean, that's a part of the reason why people are coming to record with us. I mean, most people don't have an MCI console or MCI tape machine or Unfairchild plate reverb at home. I don't. I do right now. I have a tape machine, but that's just for right now. Quarantine. But to give these people the sounds baked in, that way they're getting the most bang for their buck when they come record with us. They're getting everything's committed and printed. We're not trying to. We try to make decisions and stick with them.
Yeah. And Jacob has a question here. I'll read the whole thing. How much do you feel is done by the engineer producer to influence a specific sound of an era for a record versus the specific gear and recording medium? Ooh, that's, man, I mean, not to cop out on the question, I think it's 50-50, I mean, and correct me if I'm wrong, Jeremy, but I think a producer in my mind will accurately describe the sound they want to hear, and the engineer and player, right, will grab the right piece of equipment to do it and apply it the right way. Mm-hmm. If the producer and artist don't communicate what they want correctly and have the guts to continue to do that, because we get, and you get this too all the time, you get references to things, and then they'll say, but I want a 47. It's like, well, that was probably just, the crappiest mic we have here to do that. You know what I mean? Yeah. Because period pieces didn't have those big things on there, So I think it's a team effort, Jacob, that's a great question. Do you have anything to add to that, Jeremy?
I personally think the gear and the recording medium have less of an effect on the overall sound and aesthetic of a record than the people working on it. The musicians, their instruments, not that those are people, but the band, the engineer, the producer, I think those will have a much more profound effect on the overall aesthetic and sound of a record. I mean, and I say that because when I assist you and you're recording to tape, or I assist you and we're recording to Pro Tools, I mean, different mediums, corresponding to different eras, it still sounds, your drums still sound, it's still your drum sound. It's still some things that are different. Sure, there are differences. I mean, but I still think that, I personally think that the medium and the gear have less of an effect overall. You just did that Mae Simpson record in a different studio with a bunch of different gear, and it still sound, when it came back and I heard the mixes, it sounds like it's your thing. That could have been recorded in '79.
That's a good point. Yeah, but I bump into it a lot when you know, a producer will say they want an era, and then they also want me to use a microphone that isn't that era.
Sure.
I'm kind of stuck in the middle. You know what I mean? So
yeah, people come to me wanting a Beatles drum sound, and they give me 16 inputs of drums. It's like, well, that ain't it. We're not going to get that. We're not going to get Ringo with that.
Exactly. Danny's got a good question for you, Jeremy. How are you switching from analog to digital so quickly?
Sure. Yeah. So we've got a bunch of Elco connector cables, about yay big, and it's 24 channels of audio for our ins and outs of our tape machine. And basically I can switch from tape machine output. I got tape machine inputs and outputs, as well as converters 1 through 24 inputs and outputs. And it's just kind of mix and match, get what you want. So I might come for a tape session, I'll come out of our console's channel path into the tape machine input. And that's just a matter of switching a connector. Do that in 10 seconds. And then tape machine output into our console's monitor path to listen back while we're tracking. And then when I decide when it's time to dump to Pro Tools, I'll just pull the tape machine output and put that into our converter 1 through 24 input. And then the converter 1 through 24 output into our console's monitor path. So it's pretty modular. It's a matter of just whatever the workflow is for the session.
Yeah, and Danny, the real short cables, like from the tape machine to our converters, is a 6-foot piece of Megami wire, so it doesn't go all over the place, and there's no chance of cross patching or getting it wrong, you know. So it's super fast. And Sophia, here's a good point. She said record only 57s and go from there. 57 was awesome years ago. Russ Paul was a steel player, and I think I just got a C12 microphone, and I put it on a steel amp, and we get a sound. He's listening back on playback. He's like, "What microphone is that?" I was like, "It's a C12, man." He's like, "Cool." He goes, "You got a 57?" So, well, and then it's kind of finishing our workflow conversation. So we were kind of left off on people kind of capturing reverbs and some other outboard gear as they wrap up their session, or they come back to kind of touch up their mixes and grab more 79 stuff. You know, you do a lot of printing of mixes to tape. I see a machine behind you. You know, either people that haven't even recorded at 79 or people that are wrapping up the projects. Like you just printed a whole album for me that I just got artist approval. You know, talk to me a little bit about that.
Sure. So yeah, we have this service we offer called Analog Anywhere. And basically how it works is you send us your stereo wave file full resolution mix. And it's a round trip, all done live. So out of my converters into the tape machine and off tape, back into the converters, no additional processing. It's just from Pro Tools to tape, from tape to Pro Tools. And people always ask me, what level should I send a mix to you at? And the answer is, well, I'll take care of that. If it's too hot to tape here, I'll attenuate your mix out of Pro Tools so that we're hitting the tape at the right level, the proper level for your music. And it depends on the song where you want to hit the tape. I mean, how far you want to hit it. Yeah, but it's $25 a song. 2-song minimum with that right now. But we're running a promo that's 6 songs for the price of 5. And it's a great way for people who haven't heard tape to kind of get their feet wet and really hear what tape will do for your music. Or if you already know, then you already know.
Yeah, and we also couple that with mastering and vinyl mastering and all that kind of stuff too. So, and we should point out that you have the machine at your house because we're quarantined. Typically, this is all done at the studio with, our converters and our console as the analog gain stage and stuff. So,
The tape machine's staying here, though. I don't think it's going to come back to the studio.
Yeah, but we're making do. We're making do. So
we have a few options with the Analog Anywhere also. For the most part, I typically recommend that we do 1/4-inch 15 IPS for our tape speed, because that's the most colored tape sounding format that we offer, in my opinion. But we do also, like right now, the machine's set up for 1/2-inch. Because I did a 1/2-inch tape transfer yesterday, but we can do Analog Anywheres at 1/2-inch if you want a more hi-fi, a little bit of a flatter, less dramatic tape sound, or we can run it at 30 IPS, which is a different vibe. So there's a lot of options there, and they all have little nuances. But for most people, I think that the 15 IPS 1/4-inch is probably what they want if they really want that sound of tape on their mix.
Yeah, and I've got some samples. I did tape a chorus of one song, and I've got the pre-tape and post-tape. We'll play it real quick. People, we're on you're probably listening on your computer. You're not listening to a hi-fi. You will hear a difference. It may be subtle, but just imagine that through a whole system and on a mix that you know real well. So this is a band that Jeremy mentioned called Mae Simpson. And this is the pre-tape one real quick. We'll just listen to it and we'll listen to the post-tape. So let's check that out. So that was before tape, and this is after tape, and the only thing you're hearing here is tape. So let's check that out. So I could hear a little difference in it, and if you, you can really hear it in your speakers. And Maggie has a really good question that I don't have the answer to. So, we had signed off on the mixes, and tape changes a lot, so I just left it. And but I wanted to hear it anyway. So. Margaret wants to know, do you recommend removing any tape emulation plugins on the mixes that get sent to you, Jeremy, for Analog Anywhere?
I think
I've never been asked that before. That's a good question.
Conceptually, I would say yes, you probably should, but at the same time, if it sounds good, it sounds good. I think that if you're sending it to us with a tape, and like, why? I don't know. I'm a little torn on it, Chris. Because
let me think about that. Yeah, let's walk this backwards, Jeremy. So like the stuff that I track on multi-track tape, when I print those mixes, there's not a huge difference. because it's already hit tape once.
Yeah.
Right? That you get that haven't hit anything, or the ones that I track straight to Pro Tools, you can really hear the difference because it's the first time it's been put on tape.
Sure. Yeah.
So in that mindset, I would think take your tape emulation off so that a real tape machine has all those transients to do its thing to it, right?
I think that makes sense, because if you're putting the tape emulation on, also not all plugins are created equally, not all machines are created equally.
Yeah.
But if you're already getting that kind of smoothness in the high end, the tape bump in the low end, taming the transients from the plugin, you're gonna get a diminishing return when we actually print it to tape. So I would recommend removing the tape emulation plugins when you send it for an Analog Anywhere. But I don't know if it's an absolute answer, because what sounds good is good. So
yeah, I think I would remove it and send it in, because a lot of those tape emulation plugins, in my opinion, really hype the noise to make sure you're doing something, and you don't want that in there, And then you can always compare. You get your mix back and just pop it in and just listen to the difference, So yeah, Rob Olson had said cool. So I'm assuming you guys could hear the difference even over the internet. So just imagine if you knew that mix, or it was you singing and all that glue happened. And the cool thing is we do our taping for people prior to mastering. So, and mastering engineers love it because it does so much that they're trying to do anyway. It does it ahead of time. And yeah, the EQ will change a little bit, but then it's still going to get mastered and re-EQ'd. So it's a great thing to do. And a lot of people, I think yesterday you did it, Jeremy, you did 5 or 6 songs for somebody who was thinking about buying a tape machine.
Yeah.
So then that's a great way for them to really hear it, Here's a Marr machine right there. So kind of going back and forth.
And Chris, I think it'd be helpful for people maybe who are watching this and listening back. Like, what are some of the things that they should be listening for in the before and after on this? Where are you hearing the tape? I mean, so obviously there's a few things that are changing. There's a bunch of stuff that's changing from the digital version and the tape version. What are the things they should be listening for?
It's mainly I tell people, like the Mae Simpson thing we played, horns and vocals are going to sit a little better together. It's going to take that edge off, in a way that EQ can't. The low end tends to come up a little bit, and it's interesting that I'll tape a mix for somebody that I haven't really heard the mix a whole lot, and they'll hear a lot more things than I heard because they're really in tune with the mix, and I'm not. I'm kind of fresh to it, I just read an email from Jack Nolan. I mixed his record, and you taped it, and he was saying the panning was wider, and things that I wouldn't necessarily associate with tape. Just the separation was better. His record is really really unique and interesting, and tape was a big part of it on the onset. So I could see that, So.
And one thing I forgot to touch up on with the Analog Anywhere, another option that we have.
Oh yeah.
And these are pretty new from our machines. Is these I/O transformer cards. So they've got Crimson Audio transformers, input transformer, and output transformer, and they're switchable. So pop them there, pop them out. They were just out because I just did tape transfer. But for Analog Anywhere, a lot of times we'll put them both in, and it colors the sound a lot too, in a really nice, pleasant, colored way.
Cool. Well, let's take one more question and we'll kind of peace out. Sophie wants to know, what outboard effects processors do you guys have? I think she means like reverbs and delays, which is interesting. We don't have a lot of those, do we? I used to have a bunch, and I just kind of sold them for years.
We don't have any time-based digital effects, do we? Not that I can.
No. I kind of reinvested all that stuff into, you know, compressors and EQs and kind of front end stuff, you know, because we primarily track and overdub and then and people mix in the box at our place. So what were you gonna say?
Slapback machine for pre-delay sometimes for the plate on the center of the plate. We can use that for pre-delay, slapback machine. Or we have a lot of these XLR to TT cables or TT to 1/4-inch cables, and we use guitar pedals. That's not uncommon. We've been using this Mutron phaser in the 70s. That's awesome. Chris has been using that on vocals, and it's been pretty sweet.
Yeah. I mean, we've been doing it a while. I mean, here's a picture of me mixing just when I was a baby. No kidding. We have that around for when people bring their kids. I just drop that mixer down on the floor and the kids just kind of go nuts on it. Sorry. I'll just scroll through photos. So, but yeah, I mean, that was great questions. And there was a lot of tech stuff and not to shamelessly plug, but we do tape camps twice a year, and we do a big recording session, recording summit in November, and it's just all this stuff, you know, technical stuff where the creative process meets the technical stuff, music business, all that, all of those topics get covered. And I see several people that have been asking questions. I've been to it before, and it's fun. So. You know, education and community are a big part of what we're doing, and I'm glad we do these Facebook Live and interact with people. So I really appreciate the questions. I had a blast. This hour flew by, man. I hope you had fun, Jeremy.
Yeah, oh yeah. Thanks for having me.
Clark's his baby. Yeah. That was me when I was a baby. Clark Hagen's a good friend, man. Hope you're doing well, Clark. We're going to sign off. And everyone be safe, and we'll see you next week on Tuesday. We're doing Mar machines, I believe, right?
Cool.
We're doing a Mar machine, so we'll talk more and more and more about it. So thanks a lot, and have a great weekend.
See you guys later. Thanks.